How exciting.
if I hooked it up right. Don't know if I hooked it up right, but we'll find out.
I see a countdown. Something's going to happen in 21 seconds.
There we go. So we're live on We're live on YouTube and Instagram at the same time.
Okay.
Welcome to Rock and Recovery. I'm your host, Jay, and today's special guest is Teresa. But before we get to her, I just want to take a moment and thank everybody for listening in. Thank everybody for tuning in. You know, we just bring a little bit of hope. Hold on, pain ends. You know, if you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with your mental health, you know what? There's a light at the end of the tunnel. You can do it. I'm proud of you, and you're worth it also. So, Teresa, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me on your podcast. It's very exciting to be streaming live to people. And hello, everybody out there. So I live in Portland, Oregon right now, but I grew up in San Diego. And my addiction story goes back quite a while because I was one of those people that started young and went heavy. And then I had the good fortune to quit really early. So I was in San Diego first, and then I was there as a teenager, you know, drinking and other substances. And then I moved to New Orleans when I was still only 19. And that was a city that really did me in. And probably I can credit New Orleans with getting such early sobriety because it was a 24-hour city. You know, you could just drink on the street. As long as you didn't use glass, you could drink on the street day and night and day and night. And I did. So many opportunities to make a complete ass of myself in public. I was like living very, very public, outside, loud life there.
Wow, that's amazing. I never knew that about New Orleans. You could actually drink 24/7 there, huh?
Yeah. And a lot of the bars would just stay open until people left. So sometimes they stayed open till 6 a.m. It was a land, I don't know if it still is, but it was the land of the drive-through daiquiri shop. So you could buy a drink drive-through. Technically the driver wasn't supposed to be drinking it, but I'm sure, you know, that happened a lot anyway.
Right.
And you'd see if you drove along the road by the river, you would just see all these beer cans that had obviously been thrown out the driver's side, you know? So it was
crazy just to be able to think about somebody just doing that, going to the liquor store, drive through, let me get a mixed drink of whatever, and just to be cruising right along doing it again. You know, that's just nuts to me to think about, you know, because alcohol is one of those addictions, one of those diseases that are so they look down on you for not drinking. They question you why you're not drinking, you know, more than like you've got a problem. No, you've got a problem because you're not drinking. That's just, you know, a little mixed up to me.
Especially in New Orleans, and this was in the 1980s. So it might be different now. I'm sure there's still a lot of drinking in New Orleans, but I think there's probably more sobriety too. And even then I did meet a lot of people who had quit and were still working in the service industry because that's where the jobs were, but there were sober people in the service industry. But you know, when you're drinking, you just ignore those people. You gravitate toward the other people that are drinking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like, you know, there's a bunch of likes in there, but you know, like does like.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
so
it validates you. You know, I didn't like to be around people who weren't drinking so much as me. And I had roommates like that too. Like one of my roommates at the time, I remember I tried to quit drinking and I'd gone a few days. And I think he was quitting drinking too. I tried to quit drinking and smoking cigarettes at the same time. So he slipped up after a few days, and I came home and he'd bought me a bunch of booze and cigarettes so that I could slip back with him. You know, it was not the kind of support. It was like, let's all bring each other down together. Which is the opposite of what we do in sobriety, right?
Yeah, right. You know, what was that defining moment that made you decide to be sober?
You know, there were a lot of times, like I'm sure everybody can relate to. There's many times you can think back where you were kind of like, should I go this way, that way? But I have one that was like, it seems like such an obvious metaphor, but I was living in this kind of punk rock household in New Orleans. And we were in this really tawdry apartment that was on the 3rd floor. And we were all just so lazy. Like we had just bags and bags of empty cans. And we would think about, instead of just someone carrying them to the freaking curb for the, trash or recycling, we would just sit around and think of ways we could rig up a pulley system or something. We'd talk about this, that we could lower the cans to the street instead of getting up off our asses and taking the trash out. So this is it was like I slept in an old box spring we found in an alley. I think we had one towel in the whole household. I mean, it was like a really, sordid kind of conditions. So I remember one day I was walking down this bleak stairway we had to the street, and I was just partway down that stairway, and I just sat on the stairways. And this is like so metaphorical. I sat on the stairways and I felt like I couldn't go back up into our household, and I couldn't go back out on the street, just psychologically. Like I just couldn't deal with either. It was kind of like that choice where you're like, am I going to stay in my addiction, or am I going to go out into a bigger real world where I have some real possibilities in life? And I'm not saying that was the moment I quit, but that was a moment that really stands out where I could see, I felt that hopelessness, and I knew there was a choice, but I was really having a hard time making the choice.
What choice did you choose, and how did you do it though? Because there's so many ways that people recover now. And every way is great. If you're doing the right thing, if you put down the substance and you're doing the right thing, more power to you, because it's hard.
Exactly. I met somebody recently, and for me, I quit drinking in 1988. I was only 20 years old. I wasn't even legal age. So it was a whole different scenario back then, right? We didn't even have the internet, which is hard to believe. I know I'm like a total dinosaur, non-drinker. But I met somebody recently. She's been sober like 10 years. And she got sober, she said, from following influencers on TikTok.
Wow.
And I'm kind of like, that worked, but it works. So who am I? Who's anybody to criticize? If you find a way that you're inspired to quit drinking, it doesn't matter if it's a person in real life, a person in TikTok, if it's a book you read that inspires you, just whatever you find that's going to make your life better is awesome. For me, let's see, well, I can tell you about I'll tell you about my last drink so far, knock on formica, except a couple of times I accidentally drank, like sipped something and spat it out. But the last drink I intentionally took in 1988, I think I had come to the conclusion I needed some help. So I went to the bar where I worked. So I worked at this bar on Bourbon Street as a barker for a can show. So I stood out in the street all day going, we got 5 dancers, 1 blues singer, 3 shows nightly, 2 drink minimum, no cover charge. Come on into the can show. So I was a barker doing that. So I went to the bar because I wasn't working that day, but I went there because I didn't have a telephone even where I lived. I mean, we didn't have money for a telephone. So I went to the bar, and I was looking through the yellow pages, trying to figure out because we still had yellow pages. I was trying to figure out how I was going to get help, because I had no insurance and no money and a drinking problem. And I was drinking while I was looking, they were giving me free drinks while I was looking for help for my drinking problem. And I knew this. I know. So I
That's kind of like ironic, here, have some drinks while you're working on your drinking problem.
Well, they didn't care. They just worked at the bar.
Right.
They're like, whatever. She's looking at the yellow pages. We don't care what she's doing. And I had one friend at the time who had got off heroin. He was still a bad drinker, but he got off heroin. So, that was good. And he told me about this place called the New Orleans Substance Abuse Center. Oh, wait, but before, what? That's that comes a little later. My last drink, though, I knew there was a place, Charity Hospital, where they had some kind of inpatient thing. So my last drink was a White Russian, because I love my White Russians, and I'm carrying my White Russian, and I'm walking across New Orleans through traffic, because I never let anything like looking both ways in traffic stop me. I'm sure I would have been dead soon just by walking in front of a car. And I made my way to the Charity Hospital, and I went to the intake place. And I was like, I'm like staggering around with my drink. I'm turning myself in. I'm a drunk. I'm turning myself in. And they're like, okay, sign this paper, sign this paper. But then I got kind of wary. I was like, can I see this place first? Because once you sign yourself in, you're committing yourself for like at least a week. You can't get out. And they're like, no, you have to sign the paper. And I'm like, no, let me see the place. And I was, no, sign the paper. So then I said, oh, I just remembered I had to do something important, and I stumbled back out. I later found out like nobody commits themselves here. It's this total scary psych place where it's pretty much you just get picked up off the street and locked up in there. And I did know people who were in there, and it did sound like a pretty scary place. So I guess I made the right choice. So then I made this promise to myself. I was like, okay, if I drink again, I'm going to have to turn myself in there. And then I did find a place where the New Orleans Substance Abuse Center, I think it was called, where you could go and get counseling really, really cheap. And so I started going there. And I had this counselor, her name, I still remember her name. Her name was Florine Gundy. And I have not been able to find her lately. So, she was older. Who knows if hopefully she's still around and retired somewhere. I haven't found her. But if she happens to be listening, thank you, Florine, because you did help me early on. And then after your private counseling session, you'd leave and they'd say, that's $1.50. Will that be cash? Because that's the kind of classy place it was. Yeah. Wow. So I'm sure they helped a lot of people there at that really, really low bottom, low cost New Orleans Substance Abuse Center. So that was the very beginning. There's, obviously lots and lots more, but I'll take a break and let you say something, Jay.
Oh, no. I talk all the time. So I'm listening to you, because nobody wants to hear what I got to say. We're here for you.
You're the star. You're the anchor. You make it all happen.
So tell me about the sober traveler.
Oh, okay. So all my life, even when I was drinking, I've been a writer. So starting from a child, that was always what I was into, was writing, whether it be fiction or nonfiction. In fact, I lost one of my novels drinking, because it was all written in hand, in New Orleans. Because like when you're a great writer and you're drunk, you lose stuff. So who knows what happened to that masterpiece? I'm sure it was great. But anyway, later on, I cleaned up, and I've been writing one thing or another, like I said, all my life. But the last 15 years or so, I've been a travel writer. So I've had a chance to travel many places around the world and write for various publications, some obscure, some that you would have even heard of, and everything in between. So in my travel writing, I write about a lot of different topics. But over the last 4 years or so, I've started to write about travel from a non-drinking perspective. So, and this has been interesting to me because it was something like, as a travel writer, you do things like you go on these press trips where people want to show you the best things in their destination, and they take you around. And to most destinations, the best things usually involve, come see our winery, come see our cidery, come try this craft beer, come to the mixology course. Like, you really notice, if you hadn't already, how prevalent alcohol is in our culture and how much it's the norm. So it had been kind of like a disadvantage for me being sober in the travel writing world, because so much revolves around it. But about 4 years ago, I really started to feel like I want to turn this around. And, there's more people non-drinking now than there used to be, with like a lot of younger people not drinking. And then there's a lot of people that aren't drinking for health reasons, because more and more health data is showing that no amount of alcohol is really safe. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. And it was weird too, because I've never been super private about my non-drinking, but it wasn't what I led with either. Like, if it was useful, I would talk about recovery to people, but it wasn't like I just walked up to people. So now I go to all these travel industry events, and I'm like, I'm Teresa. I write about sober travel. And they're like, some people get it right away, and some people are like, what the hell is that? So where's my little...
How hard was it to stay? Actually, how hard was it to say no to those drinks?
Oh, I've been sober a long time, so it was usually pretty easy, because I feel like the longer you stay sober, in general,
easier it gets.
I mean, there's times when you're tested, especially if you're having like an emotion, like a strong emotion, or you're really tired or something, or you're just not thinking and someone tries to hand you something. Like, you have to be really vigilant. You have to practice keeping your hands behind your back. People are always trying to hand you a drink.
Ordering water.
Yeah. So usually it wasn't too hard for me to say no. Sometimes it's hard for someone to hear no, though, and they keep wanting to pressure you. So then you get into the no, thank you. Really? No, thank you. You just have to keep saying.
They call me the sober traveler for a reason.
But I have this little book that just came out, the Sober Travel Handbook. So I I went from being able to find a few people here and there who would publish my articles online about sober travel to convincing a publisher that there was enough interest to write a whole book. So, and this sober travel handbook has been really fun to write because, of course, I've been sober a long time, as I mentioned, and I've been a travel writer for quite a while. So I'm thinking, oh, I know all about this, right? But I learned so much writing that book because I interviewed probably 50 people, and all of them had a different perspective. So I was able to really expand my mind and my understanding, and also that there's lots of people that have a different story than me. They don't drink, and they have trouble, and they have challenges sometimes traveling because they're not drinking, but they might not even identify as being in recovery. A lot of people don't drink for a health reason or for a religious reason, or just because they don't like the way it makes them feel. And they still are going to have some of the challenges where people where they feel left out and like they don't belong when they're not drinking, even though they don't. Someone who is in recovery, of course, we have higher stakes. Like if we drink, it can completely mess up our lives. But even people who don't have those high stakes can still really feel left out and like they
Business
don't belong.
events, invites to certain business events, especially
Oh,
networking. There's so much.
totally.
I mean, even in the podcast world, I've been to a couple networking events, and it's all based around booze.
Yep, so much is, and as a writer too, there's such a the sort of myth of the drunken writer and the romance of the drunken writer and the necessity of alcohol for writers. There's sort of this stupid myth about that, and I have experienced writers who seem to live that, because I've been in a lot of different kinds of writing worlds, like with fiction writers and screenwriters and travel writers. And, even one time I even went to a convention of healthcare writers and they were boozing it up. I'm like, you guys, you're supposed to be about health.
And let's be real, alcohol is not conducive to good health. I
It's
mean,
not,
it's not bad, but it's not, great in excess, I should say.
but really the last couple of years, they've even like the American Cancer Society came out with a statement about how no amount is really safe. And there is a link to cancer. So not to be totally alarmist with people that only drink a little, but still it's really not adding something to your health.
Right.
You might feel like it's adding to your social life, but it's not adding to your health.
So, during how these business events, these networking events, how do you navigate that? How do you deal with the person that's judging you for not drinking?
Oh, I don't really care about them. It's more how I judge myself, because you know what, I have this thing sometimes where I feel like sometimes I'll go to a business thing and if everybody's drinking and I'm feeling uncomfortable, because it's usually loud. You just get really close. You smell all the booze on their breath. I don't like that. But I feel sometimes like I've been sober a long time. I should be able to better deal with this. So it's funny. It's more like I judge myself for having still being uncomfortable than I worry about what they're thinking about me anymore. And for judging
Right.
myself, I just had to give myself a lot of grace and be like, I sort of give myself a pep talk. Sometimes I talk to myself like in the third, like in the plural we, like, okay, we're going to go out there and we're going to we're going to go to this event and we're going to see how it is. We're going to try to talk to a few people, make a few connections. But now I give myself permission. I'm like, if I feel like it's disastrous, I'm really uncomfortable, I'm going to leave. And I give myself that
Absolutely.
exit strategy. And sometimes I
Well,
still do disappoint myself. I went to an event last year where I had really high hopes for networking all day and all night. And I was so burnt out just from being around it all day. I ditched almost all the night activities. And I did feel kind of bad, like, oh, I should be able to do better. But you know what? I did what I could. And then that's all you can do.
absolutely. And that's so true my problem wasn't alcohol, it was the drugs and
Mm,
the whole game that came along with the drugs. So, it was multiple things that I was addicted to and I was
mhm,
coping with, because for me, addiction was the side effect of whatever I was going through, you know? And so being in prison, being out on the streets, not doing the right thing, being a mean person most of the time, you know, led, I'm not going to say it led to my addiction, but it fed my addiction,
mhm.
you know? And so when you're working on that, how do you work on that and navigate the role that you are in now, early on the early stages?
Oh, well. Really early stages was like because I'd kind of been in and out of school, but then after I got sober, I went to college, and one of the early things I did, because I wasn't anywhere near yet like going to some kind of business conference. Like that would have been so intimidating to me at first. But first, just around in school, I found other people that were in recovery I was going to a university in California. So it was a pretty big school. I found some other people who were in recovery. They did not have a whole lot in common with me other than that. Like we were kind of like the Breakfast Club, if you remember that movie from the 80s. Like we all seemed to be from different social strata, different
Right.
look, different music. Like you wouldn't think we'd all hang out, but we had this important thing in common, and we gave each other a huge amount of support just by being able to do something together without the question of drinking coming up. So that was one of the early things, was just finding some people to hang out with, some kind of community or fellowship where where the alcohol, because it's really tiring. Because like when you first quit, it's not like you just make a decision and then you quit. It's like you have to keep making this decision every freaking day, no matter what, or you start all over again. And not only do you start all over again, but you might not make it back to recovery because it's a deadly disease,
Right.
the addiction. So it's just important to have that support to start with, whoever it is, and they don't have to be just like you. Um, you don't have to think they were in the coolest clothes. It doesn't really matter. You just need some other people to kind of have each other's back. So that I would say when you're really starting out is important. Don't worry about all that like business networking yet.
Do the social networking for real, because you do need individuals around you that are in the same mindset as you to just help you along when you're not doing your best.
Yeah, and especially like if you're a real young person like I was, and especially back then, like now there's more young people that don't drink, but back then in like the 80s and 90s, it felt really strange. Like I was going to what everyone said, it's a party school, and I was not part of that party by that time. So it seemed extra important and kind of maybe harder to identify those people to hang out with.
So
Like
how did
now
you
I find lots of people to hang out with just by my interests. Like one of the things I'm into now is swimming, and especially like open water swimming. So I live in Oregon, so I don't swim year round outside because I'm too wimpy for that. Although some of my friends do. But in the summer, like I get together with people, we're swimming in the river 7 a.m. So some of those people probably drink some, but I can't imagine they drink very much, because who gets up to go swim in the river at 7 a.m.
in
if
the
you don't
cold
drink?
river? Let's get it right, because Oregon, is not the warmest of waters.
Well, we
So
think
you're
it's
going to get a
really
real
warm in
shock.
summer. Yeah, when it's like 70 or 72 degrees, we're like, oh, it's boiling.
Yeah. Well, that's cold down here where I'm at. So,
I
you
know.
know,
For us, that's a nice warm river. Right
oh
now,
yeah,
people are
they're
it's in the 40s now. I just dipped the other day, like from a sauna. I dipped in the river for like 10 seconds and it was like 42 degrees.
man, I don't even want to get started on Florida. The weather this year has been wacky. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's really tested people, because you got to stay inside. You've got, like one of the people in the comments said, you got to change those people, places, and things. And living in New Orleans, how
Mhm.
did you, like the party capital other than Las Vegas of America, how did you stay sober there?
It's tough. Was there sober for about, let's see, I probably moved about 3 or 4 months after I got sober. I'm not saying people can't be sober there, but for me, I really wanted a lot of healthy stuff in life, and it's a hard place to just feel like you can be healthy. For me, it was. So I ended up moving to California, where I was from originally, and the West Coast it seems like there's a lot of kind of healthy options on the West Coast, and a lot of people that are into health. So for me, that's how I stayed sober. I moved. I mean, maybe I would have stayed sober anyway, but it just wasn't the healthiest
Just
place
more
to be.
temptation, less temptation somewhere else,
Yeah. And more
you
other
know?
things to do that seemed healthier. Because
Right,
you don't want to just like like you don't want your recovery to just be the absence of something. You have to find some positive things
right.
to replace it with, so you have a fun, interesting life. Like you don't want to just be like, oh, now I don't drink and I'm boring and I just sit around with my other friends who don't drink. No, want to find fun things to do, and you might not even know what they are. Like I've developed so many interests as a non-drinking person that I probably never would have even tried if I was just still drinking because, I'd be busy drinking.
How long into your sobriety and recovery did you start doing the things, like I for a long time you get stuck being just kind of miserable but sober, kind of miserable but in recovery. How'd you deal with that? And how long did it take for you to actually start to enjoy the day?
Yeah, I was really heartbroken at first over leaving New Orleans because it was like I was in love with the city and everything about it. So it was and then I went back to San Diego at first and it seemed so boring compared to New Orleans. Yeah, and I was kind of suffering. Like I did this horrible volunteer work for some alcoholism group. As it was almost felt like penance. Like I'd go in, I'm like, this will help me stay sober. And really, I was doing some boring just office work as a volunteer. Like I was stuffing envelopes or something. It was terrible. I do not recommend that as a route to recovery. Um, so it was probably a couple of years in that I started to, well, then I was going to school. So I got really engaged in that because I was studying journalism and that was something I was really interested in. And I was writing about city news and the city of Santa Cruz. And I was like interviewing all these people. And so, I was like engaged out in life doing stuff other than just thinking about my drinking or thinking about my recovery. Because at first you think a whole lot about your recovery too. And it's always important to remember your recovery. But for me, I've been sober so long, I don't want to base my whole life about this problem I was active in 30 some years ago. I have to keep remembering that I have this thing because I don't doubt that if I started to drink again, I'd want to drink more and more. I can even see that from how I get about sugar sometimes, like that substance. So I have to remember that I have that proclivity and I just need to not drink. But at the same time, I don't want to just think about that all the time because it's not that interesting after a while. There's so much more to life than the drinking and the trying not to drink.
And you just said sugar, that just happens to be the hardest substance to quit all time. All time hardest is sugar, like non-processed sugars. So
Mm-hmm.
natural sugars are okay, but processed sugars, that's the hardest substance to actually quit.
Yeah, I still eat sugar and I drink caffeine. And if I develop some
I do,
health
I do
problem,
all that. I don't care.
yeah, I mean, if I develop some health problem where I really have to look at that, I will. But Jesus, okay. I quit drinking. I'm also vegan because I have this thing about animals. So I'm vegan. I quit drinking. I quit smoking. I'm not doing other drugs. So, um, yeah, I'm not interested in just being like so pure and perfect. Like that's not my purpose in any of this. So if I have a health problem where I have to give up sugar or reduce it, I will try hard. But yeah, I'm not trying to make my life all about what I can't do and white knuckling it and
Right.
being perfect. Like that's a real bore.
It would
And
really would be. Life would be
I had
kind of boring.
anorexia early on too, and I'll mention this because a lot of people do have eating disorders. So when I was a teen, I kind of went between like drinking, other drugs, anorexia, and they're all different ways of like sort of trying to control something or not control something or escape who we are. I don't know. They're all related. So I think that's something too that in recovery, if you quit the drinking, the drugs, sometimes people's food gets out of control before they even realize it, either binge eating, which I did some and gained a bunch of weight when I first quit drinking, or the opposite where they develop like anorexia without, at first you think it's healthy. You're like, oh, my weight's under control. I'm exercising a lot. And then after a while you suddenly realize I've been exercising like 5 hours a day and I haven't eaten for 3 days, So you have to kind of watch all these things and try to find the moderate lifestyle for yourself, I think, if you want to be healthy and happy.
So one of the big things, in recovery is the fact that you go into like an AA meeting and you have to stand up in front of everybody and say, I'm an alcoholic or I'm recovering or what. Do you ever consider yourself recovered?
Oh, well, yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about because I don't really like to dwell on all the time. I'm an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic. I mean, whatever. I feel like I'm not a practicing alcoholic right now, but I wouldn't say I'm totally recovered because if you say I'm recovered, then that sounds like an invitation to like, hey, I'll have a drink and see if it works. So I think it's a little more like if you're, maybe let's say I'm in remission, like if you have cancer, it could come back, right? Like I could easily bring my cancer back by drinking. I could come out of remission anytime I want. But it's sort of like cancer with a remission that you're in charge of. Like you can decide not to have it come back.
I happen to agree, and I've happened to use that same terminology. It's like cancer; it's in remission.
Oh, and here I thought I was so brilliant thinking of that, Jay. I'm so special.
You are, absolutely. You're freaking living a life right now when before you got in recovery, you were slowly killing yourself.
Or quickly in my case.
Quickly, quicker than normal. Let's just put it that way. Quicker than normal. And that goes for anybody, because there's two things I guarantee you that you'll quit. You'll quit, one of two ways: either 6 feet under or in recovery on your own,
right,
with help. What was the hardest part for you to actually, was it the asking for help, or what was that hardest part? Recognize, you said you had a problem. You're like, yeah, I've got a problem. What was the hardest part of that, though?
I think, well, I didn't feel like, I knew early on I had a problem. I knew when I was 14, I was like, this is not normal. But I had this feeling even then. Like I used to say this sometimes as a joke. I'd say, "Oh, there's too much blood in my alcohol stream." Like it just really it made me feel so normal. Even when I was really young, it just made me feel like maybe that was how I was supposed to be, like to have this alcohol in me. So I think it was really hard for me chemically to not put that alcohol in me. I mean, I know that it is for everybody, but somehow it just made me feel right when I put it in at first. And so I think it was a feeling of being so naked without it and not having that kind of anesthesia that bothered me the most. Like even when I was a little child, I drank rubbing alcohol. Like I was just drawn to the substance. I know,
Wow.
do not do that at home. They'll make you get your stomach pumped or something. I mean, I was too young to even remember what they did, but I think I had to go to the hospital, or, they had to do, even back then they knew they had to do something about that.
That's bad.
Most people don't seem to think that smells good. Like whenever I've had a lot of dermatology done because I'm so fair and I've had a lot of skin cancers. And whenever they're going to cut something out of me and they put this alcohol wipe and they're like, we're so sorry because we know this smells terrible and everybody hates it. And I'm just like huffing it. I'm like, it does? No, it smells really good. So I feel like there was just something chemically about me that really liked that kind of armor of having the alcohol on me. And I feel kind of naked.
That's funny you say that, because I use like lens wipes and they're normally alcohol based, and it's like, they smell so good to me. I'm telling you, they smell good. It's like
you're like wringing it out, trying to get a drop.
Yeah, it's not like I'm trying to get high or huff it, but it's just the smell, that sanitized smell. I guess I don't know what it is. It's like bleach. I like the smell of bleach
too. I guess
me too. I like bleach. I like gasoline. I like alcohol. I mean, like pure rubbing alcohol. It's just weird. I always thought I was weird. I'm like, everybody be looking at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, I just like the smell.
Yeah. I know. I still want to drink rubbing alcohol when I smell it because it smells so good.
And I don't know why. Maybe it's just our wires are crossed for some reason. I don't know, but I think it's more of the cleanliness and sanitized smell for me.
Oh, I don't know. I should be better housekeeper. Maybe I should buy some more of those products.
I don't have none of that shit either. So I just like the smell of it. So during this podcast, I know you came on here with a message. What's your message today?
Oh, my message, I'd say, is that it is possible to quit drinking and have a much bigger and more interesting life. I think we don't always feel that at first when we quit drinking. We think our life is going to get really, really small and we've lost out. But if someone from outside of that looking in, the life of someone who's drinking all the time is very small and confining. And once you get on the other side of it, your life can expand again.
So open up, get in recovery and open up those doors, because you know what? Some of those doors stay shut forever. As an alcoholic or a drug addict, those doors are going to shut just because people can tell. Even when you don't think they can, they know. And you know what? Doors do open once you get in recovery. Once you start doing the right thing, doors will open. your life will expand. Your space opens up. The possibilities are limitless. It really is true.
Yeah, you make friends, you develop new interests, you go different places. Well, okay, I'll tell you, this is sounds so bizarre, but when I first quit drinking in New Orleans, I'd been sober all of 2 days or something, 2 or 3 days. I'm walking down the street that I walk down all the time drunk, and there's shops on both sides. It's like a business street, and I look and I'm like, oh my god, there's stuff inside like past the windows inside the shop. Like I was so tunnel vision on the drink. I never even looked in the windows of these places I walked all the time. I was always like, well, I think a lot of the time I was looking for money on the ground to try to put together enough money for a drink, but I just was not looking at all. And then suddenly, even that, I was like, oh, look around. And even 2 days, I could see the world expand a little.
That's awesome. Uh, so during your days of being an alcoholic and a drug addict or using drugs, how much did that take a toll on your mental health?
Oh God, for me at the time, I mean, I was so young and I would spend all day on this stuff sometimes. I mean, that was what I thought about. I'd get up and I'd try to find some money. And like I had a friend, so I was most interested in like in drinking, not really in relationships sometimes. So I usually or often woke up alone. But I had a friend who was she was always bringing home guys. She lived a couple blocks from me, and so I would go over there sometimes. I think, oh, she probably brought someone home, and maybe they have money. I mean, this is someone I didn't even know, right? I'd go knock on their door, wake them up, and ask this guy. I didn't know if he had some money so I could go buy a drink. He didn't know who I was. Right? I mean, that's how deranged I was. I would just think about like, who has money? Who's going to help me get this next drink? So that pretty much took up, 90% of my mental space.
Did you carry any of those I don't want to say illnesses, but those mental health issues over into being in recovery?
Yeah, I mean, especially at first because like like men and women and have kind of in like in a very general way, like have different things that generally happen to them when they're out drunk in the world. Like men, and this is very general, but men tend to get in more like fights, right? And get in like in assault kind of situations, and women tend to pass out and get raped. I mean, that's what happens a lot of time just because of our like biology, right? So I think women, when we lots of times if we've had like a real active addiction and been out doing stupid shit for years, then we end up with like a lot of sexual issues. And I'm sure men do too. I just can't speak to those. So I think women end up, and those sexual issues are really connected usually to self-esteem and self-worth. And so we have a lot of that to deal with, I'd say. And I'm sure men have all their self-esteem and self-worth issues too. So I'm not trying to minimize that. I just can't really speak to that personally. So I think there's a few years, especially of that, of trying to get that, or even longer. I mean, there's lasting effects from all the stupid things we do. Also, I was a blackout drinker like every night. And so there's like a lot of mystery. What did I do? What did I get involved with? Is that having an effect that I don't even know about? I don't really know. And I don't think you can even be hypnotized and find out what you did. And that can be a lot of hours of your life. So there's a lot of kind of weird, mysterious, subliminal stuff going on. And it can help to unravel it probably to a degree. I mean, I had some therapy, some group kind of stuff, some talking to friends. And then some of it I just had to leave alone and try to make the best decisions I can, because I'll never know what I did all those hours and certain things I went through. And hopefully I didn't do terrible things to other people. I don't really know. And I'm sure men probably have that feeling even more of not knowing when they're blackout, like, what on earth did I do?
And I was just going to ask a question, but I just lost it. Yep, it's gone. Squirrel moments. That's what I call them. Squirrels. Damn squirrels. See if I can
Yeah.
remember it again. Nope, it's not coming. I'm probably think about it all day now. You know, when did you start feeling your self worth back again?
Oh, I mean, just little by little, especially when moments where I felt like I was together enough to help somebody else. Because I think when I first quit, And a lot of people probably feel like this. You get in this kind of victimhood sometimes, and you just see your own problems, what you lost, what you did wrong, and all that. But once you're together enough to help someone else a little bit, then that kind of makes you feel like, oh, I'm a human being and I can do something for somebody else and I have some worth that way. So there were some glimmers early on, but it's an ongoing thing. I've been sober for ages and there's still times where I was like, oh, I'm really not valuing myself enough. And I'm sure that's everybody. I don't think that's just people that have addictions. I'm sure, we're all products of our society and our upbringing, and everybody's exposed to different kinds of issues that come up in their families or their friends or their gender in society or whatever. So it's just something everybody needs to pay attention to, I think, to try to value themselves as much as they can.
And what are some of the steps you can take for self-care? What do you do for self-care?
Oh, I am real. Okay, lots of things. I'm really into exercise. So I like to do like swimming and a little running when my knee permits. I'm getting older. My knee's not always enthusiastic, but I'll do a little geezer jog around the park. And I go to a gym and I lift weights and I do some yoga. So all that kind of physical stuff. I like to see friends. I try to make a point of having a couple friend dates every week, even if we just go for a walk together. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I'm married now, so I have a nice husband who's also a non-drinker. So we spend time together. We like to go to hot springs. We like to watch international crime shows on streaming TV channels. I spend a lot of time with my wonderful cat, who is a huge help to me. He has the softest, silkiest fur. Wait, where is he? Lucifer, where are you? I don't know. He's in the other room. But I like to, hold him. Like, to me, it's a real comfort to have. I'm an animal person, so I like to have that animal with me. What else do I do? I do some, a certain amount of prayer and meditation. I like to take a lot of baths. I like to read books. And for me, I love to read fiction, and I do still crave an escape, like from drinking. So for me, sometimes reading a good novel or a page turning novel, I don't care about the literary quality, just something that gets me caught up in the story. It's a nice break from my own life, and it lets me escape without taking drugs.
You just mentioned your cat, Lucifer. I've got a cat also, I had it since I was born, and her name is Dum Dum.
Dum Dum.
Yeah, Dum Dum. So when people hear me call my cat, they're like, "Why are you being mean to your cat?" No, I'm like, "No, that's really its name is Dum Dum."
Well, Liz came to me pre-named, but yeah, I just kept it. He's like 95% sweet, and then 5% he just lives up to his name.
Yeah, I don't call my cat Dum Dum because it's dumb. It's literally probably it's a smart. Cats are like out of the world anyway. They're smart. Even the dumb ones are smart,
What color
And
is Dum Dum? I want to see Dum Dum.
black and white. She
Oh,
does.
okay.
She's like a black and white tuxedo cat, long hair.
Oh, that's Luce's nemesis is a tuxedo cat next door. Luce is all black.
That's awesome. And then I've got one named Trouble. So I've got Trouble and Dum Dum.
Okay.
Yeah, or Dum Dum in Trouble. And yeah, and I'll tell you what, Dum Dum probably saved my life a few times. Just because that cat wouldn't know how to live without me, and I don't think I could live without that cat.
Yeah, same here. They need us. They don't have thumbs to open the cans.
Yeah, and they know. Trust me, whenever I open any can, it hears a psst, and it's like right there. I'm like, it's not even for you.
It should be.
That's what she thinks too. It's like, come on, can't I eat sometimes? But I spoil my cat, so whatever's on my fork or spoon, she eats too.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
They're the
And
best.
and last question, one message you want anybody to take away from this that's early recovery, that's in recovery, that's maybe struggling with any type of whatever they're struggling with, what would that be?
Oh, it sounds like such a cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. One day at a time, or even 1 hour at a time. Like, okay, when I was quitting smoking cigarettes, that was really, really, really hard for me. And I put a sheet of paper up on the wall and it was 1 hour at a time. I would make a tally mark for each hour. And to me, that was really
Wow.
satisfying. And then if I slept for, say, 7 hours, I could get up and I could make 7 tally marks. And it started to, one at a time. It starts to look big really fast if you're doing 1 hour at a time. So I would say just a little bit at a time at first. Later on, it gets easy. You don't have to count them. Like now, I don't know how long it's been since I quit smoking. It's been years and years, but at the time you feel it every freaking hour. And also if you just don't be proud. Okay, I'm giving 2 pieces of advice. Ask for help. I had times when I got help from people I didn't really even know, but I told them I was having, like in a group meeting kind of setting. I told them I was having problems. Felt like I was not going to make it that day. And they just took me around with them to do, like they were babysitting me. I got dragged around a couple times when people just did their errands and they're like, I'm just going to take you along to watch you through the next few hours. So if you have someone making a generous offer like that, don't be proud. Just take them up on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you 100%. And, you know, it's crazy because I've known so many people that, will start going and going and going, and then they get overwhelmed and they accidentally slip or they get back in, they relapse. And it's terrible to see and it's terrible to watch, but it happens so often. And it's just, you know, I like to see them getting back in recovery. I've helped people in, many treatments and sober livings, and I just keep you kind of it starts to make you feel good, but you kind of feel responsible and you live their pain with them sometimes.
It
And
hurts. Yeah.
it does hurt, especially when they're doing so well and something comes up and then life altering or emotional or whatever, and they're like, bam, and it's like, I've had calls in the middle of the night, hey, and you answer them because you know what? My thing is, I don't give up on anybody because somebody out there never gave up on me.
Yeah, that's
Just that one
beautiful.
person that never gave up on me, you know, and it doesn't matter who that person is, you know, it, there's people are out there for you, if you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with mental health, if you've been in recovery and you're still in recovery and you're struggling, there's people out there for you. All you got to do is pick up the phone, go somewhere, talk to somebody and ask for help. That's the hardest thing to do is sometimes is asking for help. Then the next
Yeah.
hardest thing to do is receiving that help because it's not going to be the help that you want, like you want it, but it's going to
Mhm.
be help.
Yeah, and maybe it's maybe the help. Maybe you're not going to feel that like it was that great, but if they helped you delay your decision to use again for another hour, that's a big help because you might make a better decision in another hour. So sometimes I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, sometimes I think even if I'm like, this kind of sucks, and I well, wait, it kept me sober another hour. And that's all it takes because you make that decision like when you finally pick up something, it's in that second, right? So even just delaying an
Absolutely.
hour can make a difference. But it is hard because we have to keep making that decision. And it's if you do relapse and then you come back to recovery, that's awesome. But I think it's really important to remember that before you pick up that coming back to recovery again is kind of a privilege. Not everybody gets it. A lot of people, they go out and they start drinking again or doing other drugs and they just don't manage to come back. So it's not
That's
really as
right.
easy as like, oh, I'll just drink this and start again next week. You may or may not have that opportunity to come back next week. So yeah, really, really, really try not to pick that up.
And on that, we're going to end this live stream. Thank you, Teresa. I really appreciate you being here. And
Thanks so
I
much,
really
Dave.
thank you for taking your time out. Hit your book up again.
Oh, here it is. If you look on my website, teresabergen.com, that's TERESA.
Sober Travel Handbook. You want to know places to go that you don't have to drink? Look up Teresa Bergen. Just freaking look her up. Sober Travel Handbook. Where's
Thanks.
it available?
It's available online. You can look at my website, teresabergen.com, and find links.
Go check her out. Find some places where you don't have to go and enjoy alcohol. Keep rocking your recovery. I'm Jay. That's Teresa. That's your episode for today. I'll check you out live. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye.